This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Hello out there. Welcome to episode 105 of the Good Neighbor Podcast here in Pasco County. My name is Mike Sedita. I'm your host, and I am joined today by a realtor with Coldwell Bank Realty in New Tampa, and her name is Amy Schreiber. Amy, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I am so glad to have you on. Finally, we had a few snafus in getting some things off the ground and running, but you're here. Yep. Let me tell you a little bit about what the Good Neighbor Podcast is, why we do what we do, and how we got started. Essentially, during COVID, when everybody had to be socially distant here in Florida, the Good Neighbor Podcast was born in Southwest Florida, and essentially it was designed to give business owners and local professionals the opportunity to talk about what they do and get it out into the community and still have that social distance, because you and I are not in the same location. We're in a separate studio. So it started in 2020 doing that. And now 3.5 years later, we have podcasts in Denver, Atlanta, Virginia, all over the United States. And I'm lucky enough to be the person here in Tampa that gets to talk to professionals like you. So tell us a little bit about your business.
Absolutely. So thank you again for having me. I am a local realtor servicing the Tampa Bay area. And my main goal is to help buyers and sellers achieve their real estate goals.
So let me ask you this. The market is a little crazy right now. I talk to a lot of realtors, what I do with the podcast, what I do in the communities around Tampa. The market's a little bit crazy right now. Do you currently have a bunch of listings? Are you currently working with buyers? What's your current mix of folks?
So my mix is really 50-50 right at this point. Now I have about 5 active listings right now, and I have about 10 or so buyers that are in and out of the market, right? Again, as you said, the market is definitely changing. We've got the interest rate. We saw another increase in interest rates. Buyers are nervous. And, I think the most important thing for our buyers out there, granted, 8%, I think that's what we're hitting at sometimes now. I know it's a lot more than it was a couple years ago, but again, it is still historically low. But again, right, it does impact the bottom line for our consumers. And I think one of the most important things is for consumers to be educated and, finding a trusted agent, lender, whatever that case may be, I think is important because there's tools that can help buyers temporarily reduce a monthly payment by negotiating a buy down, an interest rate buy down in the initial negotiations of the contract, right? So whether it's 1 year, 2 year reduction in interest rate, this goes a long way. We think interest rates will go down at some point. Historically, they go down with election periods, right? And next year, we all know that's happening. So
if you don't know now, it's coming soon with TV commercials. You can't escape it.
Right. So again, there's, opportunity at the end of the day because there are temporary solutions right now. But at the end of the day, there are permanent solutions with a refinance once those rates go down. So again, there's many tools out there. It's just being educated and understanding what works for each consumer.
Yeah, I do talk to a lot of realtors because of just the nature of what I do in the communities. And, the mantra that I hear over and over again is, you buy the house and you date the rate. You buy the house.
You marry the house, you date the rate. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, I understand it from the buying side, and I understand what you're saying. Listen, traditionally, I'm old enough to remember, 14, 15% interest rates.
Right.
I was a young man. I was a kid. But I remember that, the problem is perception becomes the reality, right? So there's a whole generation of homeowners that haven't known anything above 5% in the past 10 years or so, whatever it's been, right? Since the housing crisis and all that stuff to stimulate. So, so to them, 8% seems like the moon, when in reality, what you're saying, is a fair assessment is that, listen, while it's not historically low where it was 2% or whatever it was after COVID. But it's still not, it's still not 14, 15, 16%. I think the biggest thing is, listen, if you're ready to buy a house and you're ready for home ownership, I get the whole rate thing. I think the harder people are the people that are selling, that are in those 3% mortgages that are going, oh my God, where am I going to
I've got to get into a 7,
right.
8%.
I think that's the harder sell.
I think that's fair, right? But at the end of the day, they're ready. When a seller wants to sell their home, they're ready. And the important thing for us as agents is to really educate. Obviously, we're educating our buyers on what the market looks like, what the trends are, or what we're thinking they're going to be. But with sellers, it's the same thing, educating them. What are we seeing now? Is it going to take longer to get to contract, right? Are you going to receive multiple offers, right? And what does that look like? Are buyers asking for concessions? But at the end of the day, when they're ready to move, they know they're either going to be in a rental or they're moving out of state, right? And there's no choice and they're okay with the interest rate. But again, at the same time, yes, they're dealing with the same thing. And that's why we're still in a low market, right? From a listing perspective, because those sellers are still holding on to their homes unless they have a reason to move.
Well, let me ask you this question. So, real estate is super competitive in this market. It is everywhere, but it's pretty competitive in this market. And I'm not just talking about buyers and sellers. I'm talking about from an agent standpoint. So you kind of will, I'm assuming if someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to buy a house in Brandon, you'll take them to Brandon or South Tampa, whatever. But is there an area you prefer to farm for listings?
I've farmed for about 3 years in the Wesley Chapel area, right? Which is where I'm at. Wesley Chapel, Dade City. You have Lutz over here. So obviously from a farming and a marketing expense perspective, that's where I farm. But of course, I've had listings in Apollo Beach. I've had listings in Seminole. I've had listings in Dade City, Hudson. I'm one of those that will go wherever I need to go in order to service my clients' needs. And that's about an hour and a half away within the Tampa Bay area, right?
Well, those generally, I would assume, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, like the Apollo Beach one is probably somebody you helped sell in Wesley Chapel years ago that now lives in Apollo Beach and is like, hey, we had such a great experience with Amy. We're going to go back to the well. Like, I would assume that's a lot of that, or so-and-so's cousin who lives in Brandon referred you. Like, those are referrals. Like, I would think, like, the biggest expense, besides marketing, the biggest expense for a realtor is gas. It's crazy. You're driving all over the place. So if you could have a bunch of listings in one spot, I would think that's beneficial.
Well, first of all, to the Apollo Beach, I want to answer that first. It is someone that I used to work with when I worked at JP Morgan. So I was an old boss, of course, forming those relationships. Yes, we knew each other. Yeah. Now, it's an opportunity. I am grateful that 70% of my business is referral based, right? Based on my reputation, whether it's from my corporate America experience or here. But yeah, so marketing is the biggest expense that I find. It's not the gas. I will spend whatever I need to do in order to get to you. It's marketing. How can I differentiate myself from the competition, right? There's thousands upon thousands of agents. Why is Amy Schreiber so special? Well, because I treat my clients very well. I'm in it for the right reasons, right? And I want to educate. I got into this business in order to help provide that education to our consumers. And I do that on my social platforms. I do it in person. And, at the end of the day, that is the biggest expense. I have recently invested in a tool to help support my listings that are now supporting my brand, supporting my buyers. It was city digital libraries. And, so that's the biggest expense. And of course, taking care of my clients. At the end of the day, it's important to me to give back. And that is in many different ways, from global organizations, global charities, to local communities, to obviously client appreciation events. I do those every year for every single client. Nobody is off the list, right?
Okay, so let me ask you that then. Pause for a second. First, let me tell you that I do have a way for you to actually educate affluent homeowners in a specific area. That is one way we can do that. Number two, from a charity standpoint, I'm a Rotarian. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I do business networking. I do all that stuff. So if you're interested in some local stuff, I don't know if you do the Rotary. That's something that's really cool.
I would love to get involved.
Yeah, we could definitely talk about that. But the question I had, which it totally has gone in one ear and out the other, and I totally forgot about it, was I don't know. It'll come back to me. See, this was a crappy podcast hoster. That's what I was going to ask you.
Good.
So you talked a little bit about your previous career and some of your referrals and things like that. Tell us a little bit about your journey personally. Like, did you always want to be a realtor, or did you have a corporate job and things kind of fell through and you fell into this? How do you get to here?
Right. And people have asked me that throughout my entire career. So to answer that question, yes, I've been in real estate for 3 years. But I spent 20 plus years in corporate America, climbing that corporate ladder. I've always reflected every 3 to 5 years. Who am I? Where am I going? What do I want to do? And I've actually held great positions in many different industries. But the last 10 years of my corporate experience, I was at JP Morgan, and I was a VP. And loved what I did. I promoted in 4 years to VP. I started as an associate. Built a great network. I was a co-chair of a networking committee for JP Morgan. We held legendary events. Top Golf is one of them when I first came around. But what led me to a major shift in my career was I experienced a loss. It was my co-chair in the networking world at JP Morgan. He died of cancer at a young age. And at that time, again, when anything happens, that always is an opportunity to reflect. And
puts things in perspective.
Yes, I did a major reflection. Amy, are you happy? Is this fulfilling you? And it wasn't, so I had that conversation with myself. And it took me several months to really figure out what Amy wanted to do. What am I good at? What do I want to do? What do I love to do? Right. And to your earlier question, yes, real estate has always interested me. But I kept coming back to real estate, relationship building. I'm good at that. Communication, verbally, written. I'm good at that. Business acumen. I have it right from my previous experiences. And I have family who is in real estate. So obviously, as a project manager as well, I'm asking them for information. I'm laying out my pros and cons. At the end of the day, there was no other decision than to move into this industry, real estate, knowing the risk. I was coming from 6 figures plus bonus, guaranteed, stable. I was kicking butt, right? Eventually I'd be an executive director, right? But I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I was looking for my purpose, and my purpose is to help others. And in order to do that, right, I needed to shift, and I decided real estate. And I'll tell you, I haven't looked back until I get these questions. And my first year, I made close to what, again, so there was that risk, but that first year I made close to what I left JP Morgan at with bonus. I was rookie of the year. My second year, which was last year, I achieved top 10% of Coldwell Banker agents worldwide. I've made more than I've ever made. It's not about the money. It's about helping others, right? And this year, I've already surpassed that by 2 levels. So next year, I'll be able to promote that I'm the 5 or 6%, whatever the numbers end up being at the end of the year, 5 or 6% top agent of Coldwell Banker worldwide. So I made the right choice, right? And I think I do it with no expectation, right? I just want to help educate consumers. That's at the end of the day, that's the most important thing is education, right? And knowing where to go and what to do. So yeah, I'm grateful. And I've had a great career, and every single experience has led me here.
I think the biggest thing about that shift. So I too spent 20 years in corporate finance. I worked for insurance companies. I worked for banks. I did trading mutual fund. I did all of it for a long time. Hated every minute of not hated every minute of it. I just, one of those things where towards the end, it was like, I'm getting paid all this money to do something that I just happen to be good at that I don't really like doing. It didn't do anything for me.
Right.
But unlike you, I'm a big coward. I couldn't just walk away from 6 figures. So I had to have the real estate crisis happen for me. The company I was with just was poorly designed and poorly managed. I was management, so I can say that. It was just, they kind of just were folding under my eyes. So I just, I had to make a shift, and I ended up getting into something that I love, which is marketing. And in the first 6 weeks, I made more than I did at the height of my career.
Isn't it crazy?
With one deal. Then I could have tattoos. I could grow a beard. I didn't have to wear a suit every day. So, it was all that stuff. So I completely relate to that part of it. The nice thing about it is this: if I worked my tail off in my corporate job, I get to that year-end review and there's these charts and I'm being graded on every little category. And then they say to me, okay, Mike, you were a 5 in every category. Here's your 4% raise. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like I did more than 4% worthy work, but I don't have that choice. Here's what our cap is and blah, blah, like that whole corporate thing.
Yes.
Here, the nice thing is for me, I get to help businesses grow. I get to have skin in the game with them as they kind of grow their business, which is hugely fulfilling for me personally.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie and say it's about helping people, but it is about the money for me. I like
you have
freedom
to,
that money provides.
Back into your business.
Oh,
money in order to do that and to help the community. And absolutely.
So, and that's what I do with the Rotary. That's what I do with the Chamber. Those are the things I do to give back to the different organizations. I work with a group called Celebrate Birthdays, which is cool. So are you familiar with Celebrate Birthdays?
No, I'm not at all. I'm gonna have
very cool. They work with kids who are in foster care who don't get to celebrate their birthdays, and they give them birthday parties. It's pretty cool. So, but that's the stuff I get to do. I get to choose my philanthropy, and if I want to get a big raise, I just know I need to go out a little bit more and do a little bit extra, and I get that raise accordingly. I don't have to be capped in a window for my success, and that's the thing I love about being an entrepreneur and doing my own stuff. Let me ask you this: what do you run into? I mean, you've been doing this a few years. Do you run into any like myths or misconceptions that clients, either buyers or sellers, will ask you where you have to say, no, let me just kind of level set and explain to you how this actually works?
I think, again, there's a lot of misconceptions out there. It could be process related. It could be, whatever the case may be. I think one of the biggest misconceptions we have out there from a public perspective, and one of the main things that I try to do on my social platform is the conception of, oh, you're an agent. You don't do anything, but you make a lot of money. I think that's the biggest crazy misconception, but at the end of the day, that's absolutely not true. And if I even just take a simple case of my sellers, right? First, you got to get the business, right? And then once you get that business of a listing, then, it's not just putting up a for sale sign and, having an open house and going to closing. No, there's, you've got to educate them. What's the market look like? What are buyers wanting? Are we seeing buyer concessions in the market, right? What, like I said earlier, how many days to contract, right? We're going through that right now. It's a tough market right now for listings. Even if you price it right and you've got a good quality home, right? Which is what we do as well as agents. Before you list a property, you're giving them feedback.
That's the biggest thing. You almost have to be an interior decorator that has a Rolodex of electricians, plumbers, HVAC people to make sure everything. I get that.
Yeah, and you have to go in knowing that I'm not going to ask my client to spend $40,000 on upgrades, in order to get a $50,000-$60,000 increase. No, I'm going to say, okay, you've been in this house for 10 years. We really need to paint. Do we need an interior, right? Do we need to paint all the walls? Maybe not. So let's go through each room and figure out what we should do. On the cabinetry especially in the kitchen, bathrooms, huge.
That's
right?
what sells. Yep.
You add $50, spend $50 on knobs or nice handles for your cabinets. Add those in, and you've already increased your value by $2,000 to $5,000, right? So again, it's that we're doing, to your point. And once we go live, there's that admin part that takes place, right? Can't ever run away from admin stuff. And so then it's getting the listing to go live, having a strategy, a marketing strategy that works, right? From a social perspective to print. And then it's, once you're live, you're funneling all these requests from your buyer's agents, from buyers who aren't represented, right? Really to try to, bring people in. And then you're at the offer stage. Are you having multiple offers? If you're having multiple offers, you need to lay that out for your client, right? And help guide them so they can make that informed decision. And then once you're under contract, there's milestones.
Holding their hand to closing.
Yes, and building that team around the transaction in order to get the transaction to the closing table one time, right? So it's the title company, it's the lender, it's the buyer's agent, it's the seller, my client, right? And it's everybody else. So at the end of the day, it is a huge undertaking. It is a great investment on our part as agents, and a great agent will be, we'll get the job done. But yeah, it's hard work. And
well, it's funny, the whole misconception about being no work. So I told you before we got started, I got my real estate license originally in 1995 in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
And I got it then because it was pre-Olympics, and
makes
kind of
sense.
what the market was here in 2021 and half of 2022, where houses were going so fast. Everybody in Atlanta thought that that's the way the market was going to be at that point. So I was getting a little ahead of the curve. I got my license and I did a little bit of stuff here and there, but I'll tell you what got me out of real estate was the joke I made to you initially is I was showing a house, and I could tell you it was in Powder Springs, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. I told the buyers, please do not bring your kids. Get a babysitter. We're going to go from house to house to house, trying to get the buyer to, no problem. They show up with 3 kids and they say, we couldn't get somebody. So now I'm like, already kind of like, I know I got 6 houses to show you. The very first house, Amy, the kids went and played in the yard.
Okay.
And I show the family the house.
Yeah.
And those kids, as I'm coming down the steps and walking through the living room, those kids come in from outside with mud all over their stuff and destroyed this family's carpeting. I had to pay out of pocket to fix their carpeting, to get it cleaned. And then I don't remember if I had to replace something in the foyer. Why I'm thinking I did, but I know I had to pay like a few $100s to get it scrubbed and cleaned. And I'll tell you, the knot in my stomach from that told me I never want to deal with retail clients again. I just didn't want to do it anymore. And that's how I got out of real estate. That's the story of how I got out of real estate.
Got it.
So it is stressful. It's a lot of work.
It is stressful. But I mean, again, at the end of the day, you have to have that right. And again, you did, right? But there are stressful situations that can put you over the edge. But at the end of the day, I've experienced similar things. And I'm one who just kind of goes with it. Okay, let's focus on it. Let's fix it. If I have to pay something, at the end of the day, I'm going to pay it, right? Which I know you did, which I've done several times over. And I'm not saying I'm going to do that with every transaction, but at the end of the day, I'm okay with that. And it's, again, helping others. But yeah, real estate is going to be my world. I don't think I'll leave it, but I understand what you did.
It takes a special mindset to do it. I mean, and I did. Like I had mentioned earlier, I originally did work for Coldwell Banker, where I ran into issues with Coldwell Banker at the time. And I don't know if it's still this way now, but at the time there was CB Commercial, there was Coldwell Banker Residential.
Yep.
You couldn't cross contaminate either of the two, and I kind of was too free spirited, I guess, for the group where I was trying to do a little bit of everything. But yeah, I mean, that's 100 years ago, before any gray hair or tattoos or any of that stuff. So now those kids the gray hair was probably under here somewhere from those kids.
Because of those kids. And you will never forget it. And you always add it into your interviews, I guess. It's been, I told you, that's 1996. So it's been, almost 30 years, 27 years. Well, you know what? It was a blessing because you're doing what you were meant to do now.
Yeah, I mean, I went back to the corporate thing for a while, but really the blessing was the real estate crash. I mean, I know it wasn't a blessing for a lot of real estate agents, but that was the blessing for me because it forced me out of what I was comfortable doing and kind of put in this situation. And then all of a sudden, things just started to click. So that's, listen, we all have our story and how the road winds and turns, and that's just part of mine. But let me ask you this. When you're not embedded with sellers and buyers. What do you do for fun? Do you like to jet ski? Do you like to go to the beach? Do you skydive? Do you mountain climb? Not a lot of places to mountain climb here in Florida, but what do you do for fun?
Sure. So, I mean, I like to travel. I just got back from a 10-day cruise. That was probably a little too long for me because I was working as well. So I did a little bit of work, a little bit of travel.
Where was the cruise? Where'd you go to?
We went to Greece and Italy. So that was lovely. I didn't get to Mykonos because, whatever, the winds. But loved Florence and Pisa and loved Athens. Those are probably my favorite. But so travel, spending time with friends and family, right? And I love to read and learn new things and cook when I can.
So, all right, couple questions. Number one, 10-day cruise, the general median age on that cruise is probably in the low 70s, right? I mean, they're usually
probably, yes.
It's a little older. I've done a long cruise like that, and I'm like, oh boy, I'm the only one here. I'm the only one here for me, right? So that's part of it. But if you're gonna go to the Mediterranean, you got to really do that longer cruise if you're gonna go over there.
I mean, I am so grateful I went there, and I'm happy. I'm grateful that I have that opportunity to do so. But yeah, traveling to different countries or areas, not necessarily all the luxurious ones, but just to kind of understand different cultures. And I mean, I'm grateful.
So. The next question I have off of that is, so what is your go-to dish that you cook?
It's probably my filet mignon. I love to cook a great steak, and actually,
really?
I am close to Ruth Chris and Burns, so I know they're two separate things, but it's a fantastic piece of meat.
All right, wait. So now I got to understand, because first of all, I'm going to do full disclosure. I've eaten at Burns, and I thought it sucked.
Love Burns. You what?
I thought it was awful. Burns.
Oh, shut up! Oh no!
I felt like I was trapped in 1946. I mean, I like the ambiance, but the food just wasn't cooked the way I would like my steak.
Oh, that's disappointing.
So do you pan sear? Do you pan sear and bake and baste? How do you make your filet?
Yeah, so obviously salt, pepper, both sides, right?
Yeah, well, that's a good one.
And then onto a hot pan, the what's it called? The black pan, whatever that is.
Cast iron.
Yes, thank you. Cast iron. And I let it cook on one side for 5 minutes. I flip it over, cook on 5 minutes again. I then put them on the sides for a minute each side, and then I put it in the oven at 450 for 5 minutes, and it comes out medium.
Really?
Yeah, and then I let it rest for 10. And sometimes I add rosemary. Before I put it in the oven, I'll do a little bit of rosemary on top and sometimes butter. Put it in the oven for 5 minutes and then let it rest. That's the important thing. Let it rest for 10 minutes. And
yeah, you can't cut it. You can't cut it too fast. It's like a scene out of The Shining or something like that. It's like it's blood.
That's right.
Yeah. So I do it very similar to that. My go-to dish though is chicken franchise. I make an incredible chicken franchise. But I do like a good piece of meat. And for the longest time, all I would eat is a filet mignon because I like the meat is just delicious. But now I'm a ribeye guy. I can't.
Oh my God. Yes. I've heard you go to ribeye. A few of my friends have done that.
The flavor is so incredible on the ribeye. And I even like, there's the place right here in Wesley Chapel, Grillsmith. They make a good steak there.
Right.
But if it's my choice of the 3 minutes away to go to Grillsmith and get a decent steak, or drive to Burns, wait 6 months to get on the list.
3 minutes.
Now, I will tell you about Burns. That dessert room, I would crush that entire dessert room.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I have to go at least. Well, I haven't been able to go every year, but I mean, I've gone obviously on a handful of occasions. I've always had a good experience. So I hope you give it a shot one more time because I think they're amazing. But that dessert room is just so fun.
The dessert room is thick.
I mean, an hour at least.
Something about the way the steak was cooked, it just wasn't like, I like to be able to cut it and squeeze the steak and just watch it kind of juice. And it was almost like to me, if you're going to make a steak well done, you might as well just eat your shoe because it's such a waste of a good piece of meat.
It's disgusting. I used to be that person, by the way. But
really?
No.
You didn't put ketchup on it too, did you?
I love ketchup. Yeah, okay. So
on a steak?
Yeah.
All right, Amy, we're going to have to end this podcast right now. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's it. It's over.
Typically, I serve my filet with a horseradish mustard
Okay.
sauce, right?
Okay.
But at the end of the day, and I grew up having a steak, just a New York strip steak, and it was probably where I got the burn it. And I would have it, I would just dump it in a big thing of ketchup, and I was so happy. So yeah, and pizza, I can't help myself. Yeah. Well,
All right. Well, then now we need to take a detour here. We're really way over. So you live in Wesley Chapel?
yes.
All right. So tell me, where's your go-to pizza place in Wesley
Pizza
Chapel?
Mania. Oh, and Via Italia. Okay, two different things. Pizza Mania, just oh my God, if you go there, you order the cheese pizza, you pull that slice of pizza off that plate, and it is so cheesy. The garlic knots are amazing. The meatballs are delicious. I love the family.
Have you had a meat cheese?
And then, huh?
Have you had a meat cheese?
Okay, I have. It's top
Pizza
five.
Mania is better than a meat cheese.
Yes.
All right, I'm writing this down. I'm writing it down right now. Pizza Mania.
My second favorite is Via Italia.
I like Via Italia.
Near Tampa.
But Via Italia, the pizza is good. The margarita pizza is great.
Yes,
but
delish.
if you get that cavatelli at Via Italia with the sausage in it and the broccoli rabe,
okay,
that's my go-to number one. And number two, the gnocchi, the gorgonzola gnocchi dish they make.
Really?
Those two are lights out there. But I will tell you, Pizza Mania, Amici's, all this stuff. If you want the absolute best pizza in all of Florida, you need to drive to Safety Harbor. There's a place called Nona's Slice House.
Really?
Right on Main Street. I promise you the 45-minute ride. Go on a Sunday when you got time to kill.
I'm there all the time. I'm good. You don't have to. Oh,
Nona's Slice House on Main Street in Safety Harbor is hands down the best pizza. It's as good as any pizza I ever had in New Jersey.
Okay. So is it as good as Tony's Pizza in Dunedin? Tony's Pizza in Dunedin, right on Main Street, is delicious.
All right. I will admit I've never had
Since
Tony's
we're going
Pizza.
to Pinellas County.
Well, so I used to live in Pinellas County.
Me too.
And maybe so I lived in Safety Harbor. And I would literally, my girlfriend weighed 110 pounds, and she would still eat 3 slices of Nona's Slice House. It's really good. It's really good. So I'm going to have to check it. See, now you got me taking notes. Tony's in Dunedin.
Yeah. Oh my God, you got the Pearl. That's not pizza.
The Pearl's good. We've had Black Pearl. It's good.
Oh, Concertina. Don't get me started on Dunedin. I love Dunedin.
Yeah, I do. There's a lot. Dunedin's actually my favorite. I lived in Safety Harbor. I liked it out there. And I try not to go to Pinellas County. I get PTSD because of its relationship. But I do like Dunedin. I like going to the Fenway. I liked everything about Dunedin. But
all those little bars and the
it's cool. It's very cool there. All right, so we went off on a tangent about food, which I can very easily do. Let me ask you this as we start to wrap this up. If there's one thing that people need to know about doing business with you, what is that one thing they need to know?
That one thing they need to know is I am here for you. I want to ensure that, obviously there's that education piece that I ensure that I provide to all clients. But at the end of the day, it's your timing. I want you to, obviously they're making the decision, but I am here to support you in any way that I need to, right? And at the end of the day, I invest my money back into my business, back into my clients, by the client appreciation events and just treating them well, right? And being honest. I'm not going to sugarcoat. And sometimes I get in trouble a little bit, but I try to, there's a way to do
Honesty is the best way to go.
Absolutely.
Being direct and honest is the best way to go.
I don't want them to be blindsided a month down the road and then be totally upset with me, right? Because it's about my reputation too, as a brand. Right. So yeah, I will take care of you. I'll make sure that, you understand what's going on with everything. I communicate very well. And like I said, at least 70% of my business is referral based, which speaks a lot, highly of an
100%. 100%. So let me ask you this. The thing I forgot I was going to ask you before, and you mentioned it again just now, is customer appreciation type stuff. What is something what would be, you just sold my house. What are we doing for customer appreciation next year?
Sure. So,
or this year, when do you do it?
So this year we already had our client appreciation event. I think a couple months ago. It was at Main Event. I had 3 hours reserved. We had food, we had drinks, and a great time for the kids. I mean, not all my clients have families or young kids, but at the end of the day, I want to be inclusive, right?
Right.
So I try to pick places that can provide that family-like atmosphere while we're able to drink a beer or have a drink.
Right.
So I did that, and then the last year, so that was my second year. My first year, I hired I don't know how to say the name, Martsky Town Farm. There's a farm out there. It has, a petting farm. It was during the holidays, so I rented Santa. They have the bouncy thing. They have a slide. They had a farm, maze. So we did that with food last year, and that was just amazing. So I've been asked, I obviously took requests from my clients this past year and trying to do either a baseball event, a football event, some sort of major league. I don't know. If
that gets pricey.
NFL major league. It does, but at the end of the day, it's not that bad compared to what I spend already. Yeah. It may just be a couple extra $1,000, and to me, that's fine.
Here's the thing: every year, the further you go down the road, every year there's more clients. So you might as well get that NFL thing in now.
Exactly. So I do need to get either a hockey game, a baseball game, or
hockey game's fun, and it's probably the most affordable. And the Lightning are really good.
Yeah.
So Amy, let me ask you this: I'm ready to sell my house, or I'm ready to buy a house. What's the best way we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so give me a call on my cell, 813-406-9646. I also have a website that has all my contact information. It's Amy Schreiber, SCHREI, B as in boy, ER, luxuryhomes.com. And I am on social. I am on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. My tag is at FL Realty Girl Solutions.
Wow, you got it all covered. So, folks, if you're listening to this podcast and you're looking for somebody to help you with your listing, you're looking for someone to help drive you all over Tampa to look at dozens and dozens of homes, Amy is the person you need to contact. She doesn't care about gas. She's ready to help you out. Contact her. She has all sorts of socials and all sorts of website. We will put all of that in the podcast when we post it. In the meantime, though, call 813-406-9646. Amy, thank you so much for being a good neighbor, and thank you so much for being on the Good Neighbor podcast. You have a great afternoon.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Passcode. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnppasco.com. That's gnppasco.com, or call 813-922-3610.